Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. Today we are going to talk about Jodi Hildebrandt's part in the ongoing Ruby Franke 8 Passengers saga and how to look for red flags in a parenting educator, in an online community, in a therapist that you hire, so that you know that you're not getting into a Jodi Hildebrandt connections kind of situation. But first, if you're a post-traumatic parent and this question is important to you, if you kind of can't take your eyes off the Ruby Franke Jodi Hildebrandt case, click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. We talk about the impact our past trauma has on our current parenting and how to create the healthy childhood for our children that we never experienced, or maybe how to counteract recent traumas in our life that are leaving us depleted. So in this ongoing Ruby Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt saga, we now saw Ruby had her guilty plea in court where she said, "I am guilty. I abused my children."
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
Which means she's accepting culpability. She did the wrong thing, which, hint, newsflash, starving children and duct taping them, not a good thing. So she admitted to that. But what percentage of responsibility does Jodi Hildebrandt get? Because in her guilty plea, she also did allege that a lot of the reason why she abused her children was because she was under the influence of, under the guidance of, she was maybe hinting that she was brainwashed by Jodi Hildebrandt. And she was saying, as the professional in the situation, the person I trusted to guide me through this, she gets more culpability. She gets more responsibility because I did do the wrong thing. And you do have to listen to the little voice of your conscience inside your stomach that tells you right from wrong. So I did do the wrong thing, but I was listening to her. So how do we know who to listen to? There's a lot of information out there on the internet. There's a lot of people who call themselves parenting experts. There's a lot of people who call themselves life coaches who tell you they can help you. How do we know who to listen to? What are some red flags in the way Jodi Hildebrandt managed her business that we can use to understand things? So the first red flag I'm going to say is kind of a joke, but not really. Pretty much anytime someone puts the letter X in their program, I'd be very, 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 very weary. So Jodi Hildebrandt's program is called Connections with an X somewhere stuck inside of there. So sorry to let you know this, Elon Musk, but like X, think of Nexium, right? X gives a lot of like evil, like cult leader kind of brainwashing vibes. So I'm really just joking about that. But whenever you see a parenting course or a life coach or a self-improvement program that sounds very splashy with like a cool title, be a little worried. I try to give the title to everything I do. Post-traumatic parenting, what you see is what you get. We learn how to parent after trauma. Not splashy, not exciting. What you see is what you get. We are traumatized people learning how to parent, right? The minute you're getting to all this splashy razzle dazzle, you're thinking about somebody who is selling the sizzle and not the steak. If you're a professional, if you're going to be a parenting educator, if you're going to help people overcome whatever, if you're going to help people with their lives, then don't sell the sizzle. Tell them what you're going to do. If you're going to teach a parenting class, teach a parenting class. Call it How to Parent, not Connections, right? Because what we end up doing then is the marketing imperative becomes more important than the helping people imperative. And I do think most people like this start out very well intentioned. They want to help people. And then they need to earn money, as most people in business do. The function of a business is to earn money. But the question is, when does earn money become more important than help people? And the reason we have licensing boards, the reasons we have codes of ethics, the reason we have oversight in helping professions is because we never want to have the making money part be more important than the helping people part. So the fact that Jodi Hildebrandt lost her license, then she had it reestablished, then her license was restricted, now her license is suspended, tells you something, right? So let's talk about what Jodi, the next big red flag from this story that we can learn. The next big red flag, and it's one that post-traumatic parents can really very often fall prey to, is what exactly was Jodi Hildebrandt's role in the Franke family? We call that a dual role. We call that a role confusion sometimes, the idea that you only can have one role. You can only represent the interests of one party. When you have a fiduciary duty, a responsibility from one person to another, whose interests are you representing? So was Ruby Franke the marriage counselor? Was Jodi Hildebrandt the marriage counselor between Ruby and Kevin Franke? That would be one role. Was she the parenting expert helping Ruby Franke parent her children? That would be a different role. Was she Ruby Franke's business partner or boss in a life coaching / parenting education business? Was she the individual psychotherapist for some of the Franke children? Which was she? She can only be one of those four. If she's the marriage therapist, the couples counselor, she cannot be the parenting expert. She cannot be the business partner. She cannot be the child psychotherapist. Now, you can do family therapy where you are treating the family as a whole, but then the family is the client. Mom's not the client, dad's not the client, the kids are not the client, the entire unit is the client, but then that's your role. So then if you are the family therapist and you are working with this family and helping them through something, and one of the children suddenly starts developing OCD, you cannot also treat that child for the OCD. You need to refer to an outside therapist, someone else. So you're going to be the OCD therapist. I will continue to be the family therapist for this family as a whole. I'm going to be the couples therapist, and I'm helping this couple with their marriage, and they're learning better communication, their marriage is getting better, and then they say, you're doing such a great job with us. Can you also deal with our 6th grade son? He's slacking up often, unmotivated in school, so can you treat him? His school said he needs to be in therapy. I can't. I'm the couples therapist. I can't also be the child's individual psychotherapist. We need someone else to be doing that. So the next big red flag is multiple roles. What was Jodi Hildebrandt's role in this family? What was her job? Because she had a lot of roles. So when you're dealing with somebody who wants to have a lot of roles in your life, I can be your life coach and also your business coach, and also I can help you with your kid, and also I'm going to help you with your marriage. Too many roles. Too many roles. Which one are you? Because sometimes if I'm your business coach, I might tell you to prioritize certain goals in your business, even if that means not prioritizing other goals in your relationship with your husband, right? If I'm your couples therapist, I might say, put the relationship above all else. I can't be both. I have to pick one that I'm emphasizing, and someone else can be that person. And then the actual human that we're helping can figure out, so I'm getting this competing advice. My business coach is telling me I need to have these 12 things that I must do to make my business successful. My marriage therapist is telling me there are these 3 things that I must emphasize in my marriage. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do 8 of the things my business coach is saying and 2 of the things my marriage therapist is saying. And that's what I have time for this month. And I, as a human, get to decide how to balance these competing priorities. But when my marriage therapist is my business coach, is my child's therapist, is my business partner, that is too many confusions of roles. And that leaves me feeling I don't know who to listen to. Not to mention that if I'm your therapist, I can't be your business partner. Because your therapist needs to be this trusted relationship where it's okay to say the stuff that we don't say out loud anywhere else, where I can sort through my tangled emotions and feel safe enough to do that. But if you're my business partner or my boss, then there are things I don't want to say to my boss that I need to say to my therapist. So how do I do that? You also have tremendous power to manipulate me as my boss because you now know all the little triggers and all the little strings that are attached to me. You know how to manipulate me and how to get more work out of me. So if you as a boss are focused on the profit margin of the business, but you're also my therapist, what are you going to focus on more, my emotional and mental health needs or the needs of the business? So that dual relationship becomes very tricky and very difficult to negotiate. Now, within Jodi Hildebrandt's own individual psychotherapy practice, it was alleged that she was referred a patient by the Mormon church. She is a Mormon, she's a member of the church, and she was working closely with clergy. And she was referred a patient by members of the clergy, and she then, without the patient's consent, gave information about that patient, which turned out to be false, but that's a separate problem, to the referral resource. So here's the thing. Here's how actual mental health professionals work with referral resources. Very often it happens in my practice that I am referred a case, a school refers a child who's been traumatized to my practice. Maybe a pediatrician refers a kid, maybe a family friend refers them, maybe a best friend refers her best friend for therapy. The best friend heard me speak and she's like, you'd be a good therapist for my friend, and she refers them. Now, before I see that person, I can listen to the school. So the principal of the school calls up and says, Dr. K, we know you're an expert on trauma. We have this 16-year-old girl in our school. Her family was in this horrific house fire last year, and now she's traumatized. We can tell her startle response is high. She's spaced out in school. We're really concerned about her. Can you treat her? So in that moment, I don't have any fiduciary duty to that kid yet. She hasn't called me yet. She's not a patient. So I can talk to the principal and I can say, well, here's how trauma might show up in a 16-year-old. I can listen to the principal's concerns. We hang up the phone. 3 days later, I get a phone call. Hi, my daughter was, I have a referral from the school principal. My daughter would like to start psychotherapy with you. At that moment, I have a fiduciary responsibility. I have a fiduciary duty to that daughter, that kid who's coming into therapy. Let's name her Sarah, right? So Sarah is now my patient. Principal calls me in a few weeks. I just want to ask you how Sarah's doing in therapy. I can't confirm or deny even knowing Sarah. It was very kind of the principal to refer the kid. I get that the principal's doing this from an abundance of concern and caution and caring, and they really want to help, but without permission from Sarah, because in psychotherapy, the patient is the holder of the privilege. That means the patient owns their own information. They get to decide what I do and don't tell other people. Obviously, when it comes to like managed care and insurance, there are all sorts of rules and regulations. Like I do have to tell the insurance company if the patient doesn't show up because they pay for the service, right? So there are rules that govern that, where this is what a therapist can tell the payor, this is what the therapist cannot tell. Now, if Sarah wants me to perhaps negotiate with the principal for her, so maybe she has panic attacks in gym class, it's too loud, there's no windows, it reminds her of being in a house fire, and she really doesn't want to take an indoor gym class. And for some reason right now, she's not feeling empowered enough to tell the principal herself. So she consents for me to talk to the principal, and she says, yes, I would like you to talk to my principal and explain to my principal that I cannot take gym in an indoor gym setting because it's too triggering for me right now. I'm not at the point of my therapy where I'm okay with that. And she consents in writing, and we have a conversation about what that means, that she's giving up her privilege and she's allowing me to talk to the principal. And I get that she fully understands the implication of that. And if her parents have decision-making rights, they also consent. So we're all working together. Then I can talk to the principal, but only about what Sarah consented for me to talk to the principal about. Not anything else. She is the holder of her own privilege. She gets to decide what I do and don't tell. That doesn't mean I'm going to lie on somebody's behalf. I had somebody who once claimed to be in psychotherapy with me, never met the person. I can't confirm or deny, but I'm not going to lie to you now, not going to lie for you now. So I had someone call me and say, can you tell the school that you've been treating my daughter for a year? Not going to do that, right? Because I have an ethical imperative not to lie. But at the same token, you are the holder of your own privilege. You get to decide what I do and don't say. So Jodi did not respect that. So because she was referred this patient by the church, when church leaders called her about this patient, she gave information about him. Now, he also alleges that the information was false, that she lied. So here's another big red flag. If somebody's lying, probably not a good mental health professional that you should trust. So the fact that she lied, or that she allegedly lied, according to that patient, she lied, problem. Now, but whether or not she lied, she could have been telling the absolute God's honest truth about that patient. He was the holder of privilege. She did not have the right to violate his privilege and tell the church. Now, third red flag is if any advice seems really extreme, and out there. I mean, when you're getting parenting advice involving not using doctors, using honey instead of like actual medical equipment to like bandage wounds, putting cayenne pepper on kids' tongues to make them feel pain when they do something wrong, and any advice at all using this duct tape, right? Any advice like that, and you're like, I think I want to vet that advice. I want to call, my kid's principal, my pediatrician, my own religious leaders, my best friend. And you're told by the members of the group, oh no, don't talk to any of those people. Only talk to insiders of our group because only we get it. And they're going to like interfere with your ability to benefit from our group. And in many, many cult-like groups, they call people like that, whether they're downers or whether they're negative influences in your life or whether they're holders of deceit or they've bought into the false narrative, as Jodi Hildebrandt was allegedly saying. That's a big red flag. Anybody reputable who's going to give you advice is going to say, absolutely vet my advice by people. Now, sometimes a credible mental health professional might say, in the past, your mom said some pretty hurtful things to you. I'm talking now adult to adult. So maybe your mother-in-law who keeps criticizing your parenting isn't the one person whose opinion you'll take. Why don't you talk to your pediatrician, your kid's principal, your kid's teacher, your best friend, your pastor, right? I want a multiplicity of viewpoints. If a parent comes into me and I give them advice for something that I want them to try, and they're like, "Can I run this by my kid's teacher first?" Of course, I want to hear what your kid's teacher has to say. The more information I have about what's going on in your kid's life, the more effective I can be as a parenting expert, right? The more effective I can be as a parenting therapist. In that situation, I'm an actual therapist, right? Of course, absolutely. Now, should you be telling the whole entire universe that your kid's in therapy? That even if your kid is below the age of consent and you own their medical decision making and you own their privilege, still probably not wise. I sometimes cringe and worry when I see a parent, on Instagram talking about their child's therapy. That's their child's private owned therapy experience that they get to hold precious. But I want to vet it by some trusted people. I want to ask my husband. I want to discuss it with my sister and really close friend who has a similar profile child who I really admire. I want to ask my pastor. I want to ask my kid's principal, of course. Absolutely. And please come back to me with what they say and we can fine tune our plan. But being told don't communicate with people outside of the group, that's another red flag. Now, why do post-traumatic parents fall prey to this so much more than everybody else in the population? Because a lot of us as post-traumatic parents, we feel like we lack discernment. Like we feel like, I don't know what normal is. I never saw normal growing up. I never experienced normal. This person seems to know what normal is, what healthy is, what good is. And she's so sure. She speaks in black and white and absolutes. I want to be sure like that. I want to know that I'm doing the best I can for my kids, that I'm parenting them right. And she says she can parent them right. When a person speaks in absolutes and not perhaps as maybes, it could be frequently, often, right? But rather they speak in, this is the one true way to parent. This always works. That's a red flag because we all, as professionals, we know this usually works. Most of the time this works. Here are the 3 most effective ways to do this. But will it for sure work in your case? Humans are individuals. Your case might be very different. We might be we might be saying the same word, but meaning very different things. The way when someone says they were bullied, do you mean beaten half to death? Or do you mean the most popular girls didn't let you sit on their lunch table? They're both bullied and they both are traumatic and painful, but we're talking about 2 different things. So a professional knows that there's nuances and there's shades of meaning in the world. So when someone is communicating in absolutes, the parenting solution, I gotta worry. Because if you really believe that you have the parenting solution, you might need to see a mental health professional for that delusional disorder of yours, because no one has the solution. But people love to hear that someone has the solution because claiming that you have the solution sells. So in terms of culpability, Ruby Franke admitted guilt, which means she admitted she did the wrong thing. So she admitted she's culpable. Can we say that Jodi Hildebrandt is more culpable? There's an opinion to say that, right? As the professional, you're held to a higher standard. You should know better. You went to school to know better. You learned better and you chose to do something different. There's a place to say that. There's a place to say Ruby Franke you're the mom of these kids. At some level, you had to have an instinct that duct taping them and starving them wasn't a good thing. I think they both bear responsibility, but it's not my job, right? I'm not a judge. I'm not a jury. That's not my job. But as a post-traumatic parenting expert, I can say that let's look at this case for the red flags. The red flags are there. The red flags of someone claiming to be an expert, the red flags of someone having dual roles within a family and within a situation, the red flags of somebody who was known to violate privilege and to talk about people behind their back, the red flags of having multiple roles, not only within a family, but within many families and in many situations, trying to treat someone and also at the same time coach them. Those are all red flags that we should pay a lot of attention to. And like I said, the letter X is a red flag to me. Anything involving duct tape, unless it's like fixing a broken like handle on a mug, is a red flag to me. Anything involving harming children, like if I put cayenne pepper on my kids' tongues, isn't that going to make them cry? Aren't they going to hurt? And anytime we're telling people not to vet our advice with anybody outside a small, closed, chosen circle, those are all red flags. So if you're getting involved in some sort of an educational group online, there are some wonderful groups out there. I have learned so much information about gentle parenting, responsive parenting, Montessori techniques. I have learned so much about health from various online communities that I belong to. Those can be super helpful, but look for those red flags, look for those dual relationships, look for those closed groups, and don't talk to people outside of our group, because that's important. That tells us something about the people that we're listening to. And also, if you're getting mental health advice and you need psychotherapy, please find someone who is licensed in your jurisdiction, who has acknowledged expertise in what you are looking to treat. Just because someone has doctor in front of their name does not mean they're a psychologist. They could have a doctorate in agricultural practices. You can get a PhD in art history, and you can present yourself as doctor whatever, life coach, and people assume that you have some mental health expertise, but you actually don't. So look up people's license information online. Make sure that the person that you're speaking to has expertise in your jurisdiction and they're capable of helping you. And make sure that they're okay with you vetting their advice by a trusted advisor. Like I said, not with the whole entire world, because that's not fair to your child or to your own confidentiality, but with people who you know and trust, so that you know that you're protected. Because sadly, like in every business, unless there are checks and balances, to a certain extent, it's buyer beware when it comes to coaching and when it comes to educational information you can find online. There's some wonderful information out there, and there's some very manipulative, dangerous, cult-like situations that you really don't want to get to. So if you like this content, if this speaks to you, please comment below. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want to know about more red flags, if you want to know about your post-traumatic parenting journey. If you wish this was a talk show and more give and take, that's what our Instagram is for. So check out at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology on Instagram. We have a subscription where you can have that back and forth. If you want longer form interviews with experts, check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, the Post-Traumatic Parenting book is forthcoming. I cannot wait to see it out there in the world. Till next time, please click subscribe below so you don't miss another episode.